Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level. Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase, the podcast that helps you succeed in your business, career, and life. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, Eric. We're into August. The weather's beautiful. Life is good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, weather around the country has been a little crazy. We went from 100-degree weather in the Northeast to basically fall. And a lot of the country followed suit. So it's been an interesting 2 weeks.
That's New England.
It is. Well, I think it was Mark Twain who said, if you don't like the weather in New England, wait 15 minutes, it'll change.
And it does often.
Yes,
So,
it does. So we have a very special guest this week.
yes, we do. Our guest today is Shaun George, who I met quite a few years ago back at our Church of St. Anne's. And I think the first time I met you was when you were doing a book signing after Mass, and it was a summer read, which I just got the book and I read the book. And basically, I hardly ever talked to you after that until we got together quite a bit recently. And obviously, that book was part of your journey as far as life goes, but your journey since then has been incredible. And one of the neat things about Shaun is that she is just here to share it forward and to motivate everybody else to just conquer whatever they can, basically one moment at a time, because that's exactly what she did. And she does this for children. She works very well with them. I know at our church, we sometimes have coffee in the morning, and she plans the kids activities so the adults can drink their coffee and stuff like that. So, but anyway, Shaun, it's just a pleasure to have you here. And basically, we always start this off by having you tell your story. So obviously, there's a lot to talk about. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's just grateful to spend time with you. And hopefully, something I say will connect with one of your listeners and just encourage them with wherever they are in their lives. But yeah, so I'm Shaun Elizabeth George. I live in Connecticut, and I'm married to my husband, Stephen, and we have 3 kids, Kate, Gavin, and Matthew, who are currently 18 or 19, 18, and 13. And we have a very quirky black lab named Georgia. And from the outside in, life looks great. But as most of our lives from the inside out, our life, took a turn a number of years ago when I was diagnosed with a rare salivary gland cancer called adenoid cystic carcinoma. And in 2017, had that diagnosis, and the process included a tumor was found in my nasal cavity and grew into my palate. And in March of 2017, I had my palate removed. So I actually speak with you today with an artificial palate called an obturator that serves as my palate to help me speak and eat. And I followed up with treatment, and I'm just grateful to be here. I thank God every day I'm here. I'm considered NED, no evidence of disease. And this isn't my only struggle in life. I've dealt with other things such as depression and anxiety. My faith has just really helped me through a lot. But I really am just here today because I want to harness my struggles and use them as stepping stones in life to help the next person in line. And it's not just cancer, it's just principles I've learned along the way that I just pray bless somebody and can help somebody who's going through a hard thing and put them back on solid ground. So I do have a company called Live from the Inside Out, and I share encouraging messages through my books and podcast. And my current podcast season is called Pause, or my podcast is called Pause, Breathe, Pray. But in the second season, I specifically provide encouragement, support, and hope for cancer patients. And I also have some items on my website, Shaun Elizabeth George, to help cancer patients and their families with tips of newly diagnosed, whether you're newly diagnosed or walking beside someone who's newly diagnosed. So again, just trying to harness my story and help and bless those next in line.
That's fantastic. And there's so many people. I mean, unfortunately, cancer is actually becoming more and more common. And I don't know anybody who hasn't been touched in one way or another, whether it's a friend, a family member. And it is scary when you first hear that word, when you get that diagnosis.
Yeah,
So,
I thought nasal spray. know, so to leave the doctor's office told I had a tumor in my nasal cavity going to my palate, and I thought I was walking out. Yeah, it's quite alarming. What, no matter your story or where it's found, just to hear they didn't say that day you have cancer, but yeah, it just makes life pause, and you kind of have to reassess and grow and renew perspective.
so
Yeah.
you were talking about providing support. What kind of support did you have at that time?
When I was diagnosed, well, my faith was a huge support for me, being in God's word every day. I know that's not everyone's story, and I'm not here to impose it on anybody. I'm just going to speak my truth because it's really a resource and source of where I get wisdom and strength for that journey. Family was just amazing. My amazing husband, my children were 10, 9, and 4 when I was diagnosed. Obviously, we kept things age appropriate, but you can't really lose your palate without letting your kids know. So there was some stuff that they had to obviously be aware of. But really just the family, and the community, as the Chip was saying, our church, from prayer services to people just showing up with meals or driving my kids places or just knowing that, like, I call them my circles of love. It was very much revealed to me on I think it was on the chemo chair one day, maybe it was radiation table, but just as I lay there by myself, recognizing I was never alone and that I had, oh, you know where it was? It was at the Relay for Life. That's where it was, because I was at a Relay for Life event, and I had a friend, while I was in treatment, I had a friend say, "Have you looked behind you?" And I hadn't. I looked behind, and there's just these rows and rows and rows and rows of people behind you there to support you, and they don't even know your name. They're there to raise awareness and funds for cancer. And so it really gave me this visual when I lay there, if I'm in a chair, chemo chair by myself, radiation chair, waiting for a doctor's appointment, I just picture these circles of love around me. So the first circle is God, and the next circle is my family, the next circle is extended family, and then you have, like, your friends and family community. And it just gave me this visual of, so often, especially in society nowadays, especially with COVID. I know we had a little talk prior to recording about COVID, but just recognizing that we're never alone. Even when we're alone physically, the hope and prayer is that if someone's going through a hard time right now, that they can kind of draw those circles of love around them, and just identify who their circles of love are and be sure to lean into them. And it's humbling. I like to show up for people. I don't want people to show up for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can relate to that. It's very humbling to be the one who asks for help or
Yeah.
support.
And the Relay for Life is so powerful. I mean, I've been going to them probably for the last 15, 20 years too. And the first time that I was there, it's just a walk, a fundraiser, and so on and so forth. But to have all those luminary bags lit up around the track and the names of people who you are remembering and who you are celebrating and so on, it's so, so powerful. And you're right. I mean, it's hit a lot of people. And obviously I'm not going to share the things that have happened in my family, but obviously there's a few people there too. But it's just so wonderful. And what you've done too is, since your battle, you've gotten, talk about giving back. You're a marathoner and you got one coming up.
Yes, that was unexpected, Chip.
There you
Yes,
go.
so there's an organization called Brave Like Gabe. And Gabe Grunwald was the first person I met who had adenoid cystic carcinoma like me. We met via email. My aunt had connected us, and she was a runner for Brooks. and had been training to try to get to the Olympic trials. Sadly, Gabe has passed, but her legacy of Brave Like Gabe exists because her thought was, if I don't get to live in a world where there's a treatment and cure for rare cancer, then I want to help create that. So she left this legacy of Brave Like Gabe. And last year, I don't know why I did this, but I applied to run the New York City Marathon. Now, Chip knows this, Eric, you don't, but I don't run. Like, I like to work out, but I'm not a runner. So I ended up getting chosen, and I felt sick to my stomach, and I wanted to I had every excuse in the book to back out, but I didn't. The words I like to live by is pause, breathe, pray, and live out love. And I chose to fight through the fears and say yes. And I did Couch to Marathon last year, New York City Marathon. I was able to raise over $17,000 for rare cancer research, and our team raised $83,000. And this year, Brave Like Gabe is going international for the first time for their marathons, and have asked me to run in Berlin, Germany, September 21st. So I'm currently training with 7 weeks left to run the Berlin, Germany marathon. Again, I would not do this for myself. The reason I'm doing it is to raise awareness and funds for rare cancer research because we need it.
That's fantastic. So you have no idea why you decided to apply for the New York Marathon.
Well, I guess life has taught me I don't know that I like to be refined, but after you have cancer, at least for me, cancer brought me to the edge of life, and it really refined me. It kind of refined, it just made me see things clearer. And I was actually not in a great place, if I'm being completely transparent, when I was applied, because I knew that like the layers of life were thick again, and I wasn't living like as I needed refinement in my mind and my body and my soul. So, so I guess I signed up for a marathon. And I will say, I didn't expect to get chosen. I literally wrote in the application, I don't run. So I kind of thought I had it in the bag to not get chosen. I was wrong. But in the process, there was a huge refinement that happened within me, in my mind, in my body, in my soul, and recognizing that when life is lived with purpose greater than yourself, there's really nothing we can't do. So just getting outside of myself and being more outward facing and wanting to do stuff to bless others, there's just fuel in my soul when I can do that. I know it won't always be a marathon, but so whoever's listening, I'm not expecting anyone else to run a marathon unless you want to, but more so if you're having a hard time and you're needing that inner refinement, consider looking up and out and seeing how you can maybe be a source of blessing for someone else and can use your time, energy, or resources to help others, because there's a renewal within that happens when we do that.
Yeah, and obviously, if you're like me and you're not going to go out and run a marathon and so on and so forth, one of the big things for fundraising is having a donation page through your Facebook or through your website and so on and so forth. So if you can't run, one of the best things to do is to support it, because obviously the funds are going to be put to 100% wonderful use. So, and I know all that info is you can share later on before you leave, as far as website and all that kind of stuff. But as far as supporting what you're doing, it's just unbelievable. That's just the way that you have always been. I mean, in your first book, again, before your journey, and this is what it's all about. Life is just a journey. You just poured yourself out as far as what had happened so far, which was not uneventful. And it was a wonderful book. And then you've taken it forward, written books for children. You do your talks, you do your podcasts, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, you've just been walking the talk and giving back, which is what our faith teaches us to do, is just to give unconditionally. And the bottom line is, obviously, the support and the love that you've got coming back to you, even though you're saying, oh, shucks, a little bit, and so on and so forth, is well deserved too. Eric and I have often talked about life being a circle, and to give, you got to be able to receive too. And that's what it's all about. But I mean, you're just a prime example for that. And then your pause, breathe, and pray, that came from your first book. And Eric knows that I always talk about, and I think I told you this when we got together too, I always talk about the present moment and the Jack Canfield formula that event plus response equals outcome. But between the response and the event is the response is the action, but you have your reaction before that. And that's our feelings. And that's where we get into trouble with the 60,000 thoughts a day and so on and so forth. And when I started talking about that, I was inspired by your pause, breathe, pray, because you brought that out in your book as an example as to how to harness the present moment. And it's just a beautiful thing. And if you folks out there take away one thing from today's podcast, just write down those words: pause, dash, breathe, dash, pray. Period.
Thanks,
So
Chip.
we've sort of been dancing around this, but tell us about that first book.
Well, the first book, I'm not a writer. Like, I'm not a runner, but I guess I'm running marathons. I'm not a writer, but I have 4 books. Like, I'm actually a health and phys ed teacher by trade. Like, I haven't done that in a long time because I've been a mom, which I'm very excited and proud of. But yes, so my first book is called My Journey to Live from the Inside Out. And what it was is I was on a different spiritual journey and hit a wall. In full transparency, it was I had this moment I thought I was going to leave my family for a life of solitude. And in that moment, I knew I loved my family, my husband, my kids, but at the same time, had this internal turmoil, and in that, it brought me to this depth of depression, and it helped me in that time. People were like, "Oh, I'll pray for you." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds good." Like, prayer wasn't a part of my life, and so people who are listening who hear that word, like, no, I get it. I was there, and yet I was like, well, if I'm gonna like consider this, I want to kind of get to know who God is for myself. And so over time, I kind of just pursued that. And long story short is I did come back to my childhood faith, and it's been very transformative for me. And so the first half of the book is kind of my journey. In process of writing it, I'll go backwards for a moment. My grandmother was dying, and she at 82, I believe, was first diagnosed with depression. She was the only other person in my life I knew also had depression. And so as my grandmother died, she in her whole life was more like a shell. And those last months with her, that shell broke open, and I met this woman I had never known. And she was remarkable and beautiful inside and out. And I didn't want to live my life in a shell. I wanted to get to the end of my life and have opened up into the person I was meant to be. So even just starting to write the book was more me processing my grandmother's death and trying to unfold myself into who I am so I didn't live more shelled off like she had. So that was kind of what inspired me to begin writing. And in the process, I started just journaling. And over 4 years, that journaling turned into the book. So the first half is about my struggle with anxiety and depression. And the second half is after coming back to my faith, what does like God's word even have to say about your wellness? What does it have to say about your health? What does it have to say about relationships or marriage or parenting? But there's wisdom there. And so when I started taking God's word and putting it into practice, it truly transformed my life, my marriage, my parenting. And so that's just kind of where I've landed. So the book for me was very therapeutic to write. And again, like, I'm not someone who's sharing my stuff because you need to hear my story. My hope is I'm sharing it that if there's something that I've learned in my story that can help you in yours, that's why it's there. Because cancer taught me you get to the end of the life, you have nothing, you bring nothing with you. So if there's any love or wisdom we can leave behind, that's what I want to do. So my writings now, when I write, really, I hope my kids read it someday. But you know what? They're not ready. So if someone else now could read it and benefit from it, great. But someday maybe it'll benefit my kids. But why not, Eric, you share your story, Chip, you share your story, because you all have value. All of us have stories, and they can really help somebody else. Like, I know you have a powerful story, Eric, as you do, Chip, so.
Nice. So you said you're not a writer, but you have 4 books. What are your other? Take us through some of the other books. What have you been writing for a non-writer?
So that was my first book. The second book was actually a kid's version. My kids were outside playing. I sat down on my kitchen table, and 30 minutes later, I had these words. And I called my mom. I'm like, I think I wrote a kid's book. So that book is called A Place for Sam. And it's about a puzzle piece named Sam who doesn't like the way she's made, but comes to learn with the help of the puzzle maker, Christopher, that she has a place and a purpose in the world. And so that book I share, it's, at this local cafe, Beans in Avon. I do talks at schools with that book, letting kids know their puzzle piece matters. They are unique, valued, and loved, and their puzzle piece matters. So for me, that was more taking my story to a kid's level and coming to terms with I was made on purpose with a purpose, and I have a place and I belong. So that's just wanting to speak to kids' hearts. But it's amazing when I share it with kids, I have adults come up to me afterwards and go, I needed to hear that story. Um, so that's the other book, A Place for Sam. The third book, actually, after when I was done with treatment, I called it my healing year. And I'd been journaling and writing along. So I took through my cancer journey, I took that book and I took those writings and made a book called Our Struggles Have Purpose that has 55 life lessons from my walk with cancer. So one of the first lessons in the book is your story is not online, because how many of us get an ache or pain or get a cancer diagnosis and we Google it?
Yes.
I did. And when I opened it up and I saw adenoid cystic carcinoma, well, pretty much it was not good news. So recognizing there's wisdom, but there's also, for me, like Googling is not healthy. But trying to encourage people, there's sometimes you can gain information, but don't necessarily think you're a statistic that's already out there. Your story's still being lived.
Yeah,
So,
don't Google your symptoms. That's the best way for you to start thinking that your case of the sniffles is fatal.
right, you start ruminating on thoughts that are just not true, and you want to have thoughts that are true and right, and so the third book is Our Struggles Have Purpose, and that book I just wanted to make it accessible. So that's why the second season of Pause, Breathe, Pray really is kind of taking that book. I've added things through the podcast, but wanting to make those lessons accessible to people if they're driving to their treatment, if they are, sitting, waiting for their doctor's appointment, if they're in radiation, if they're on the chemo chair, that those lessons are available to people. If they don't want to sit and read the book, they can listen to some of that. Um, and then the fourth book is actually called Align with Your Divine Design. And it's a study in Proverbs to build scripture based prayers over your mind and body. So that's just recognizing that our minds, our eyes, our ears, our mouths, our hearts, our hands all have a greater purpose than maybe we think they do.
Fantastic. So you're not a writer, but you've written 4 books. You're not a runner, but you run marathons. What aren't you now that you're going to do next?
Well, I'm gonna be a mom of one at home instead of at home. So that's a new journey for me.
Yeah.
Is No, it's a blessing to be a mom, and it's gonna be a little change, but no, it's I think all of everyone here listening, is just remembering that our I know not everyone likes to hear our struggles have purpose, but sometimes if you think about if we can harness our struggles for a deeper purpose and transform it into something, it can really help others. For me, my tumor, like losing my palate, well, if I had to lose my palate for them to research ACC so that someone else doesn't have to lose it, then it was worth it. I think we live in a society where people don't want to come, things don't want to be, there doesn't want to be a cost to something, but sometimes it does take somebody having a hard time so that other people don't have to have it. So we can reframe sometimes the struggles. Um, I think it can renew our minds and recognize that there's deeper purpose and meaning to what we're experiencing.
Yeah, that's something we actually talk about fairly frequently on the podcast is reframing challenges into opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're talking about a challenge that most people when they get hit with it, unfortunately their first thought is, oh my God, I can't handle this. And yet most do. And it's about understanding that, yes, you're capable of more than you think you can. And each challenge that comes builds you up. I mean, you said, you're not a runner, but you're running marathons. Well, that is, when we talk goal setting, we talk about the big, hairy, audacious goal or the moonshot, the one that, you don't know that if you can accomplish it or not, but if you even get close, it's amazing. And
Yes,
that's how we grow through all these things. And you really do have to focus on that growth in order to see, oh my God, how am I going to get through this? Okay. What are you going to be like on the other side once you've conquered it?
absolutely. And, I think it's so important to recognize our thoughts. We live in a society, culture, I should say, where, we don't necessarily slow down to acknowledge our thoughts, but not every thought we have is true, and not every, and to recognize that. And when I'll just say, you made me think of something. A couple weeks ago, we were away, and I actually took a break from running because I was in extreme pain. Not actually moving; I could still walk, hike, but I actually sitting to standing, and my mind immediately went, oh, "I'm out of the marathon. Like I'm done." Right? Like I don't know if anyone else goes the all or nothing thoughts, but I do. you know, and so it was like, okay, I'm done. But it was more so, okay, come back. That's not necessarily a true thought, but what is mine to do? Like, what does love require of me today towards myself to help me in the healing? Um, and again, the three words I shared before, pause, breathe, pray, I wholeheartedly live by those. The fourth part of that is pause, breathe, pray, live out love, whether it's to yourself or others. But also, if God doesn't, excuse me, prayer doesn't resonate with somebody, I'll say pause, breathe, and align with love and live out love. Because to me, God is love and love is God. So, but that's just another way of reframing it for listeners who may not, where prayer might not be something that's they're there yet. But yeah, I think recognizing our thoughts, like you said, I recognize with the marathon, there's freedom on the other side of fear. My Wednesday night before the marathon, I had a full blown panic attack in bed with my husband. And I turned to him and I said, I can't do this. I've raised the money. I'm giving the bib away. Like this, I can't. And he was like, just slow down. Again, I'm all or nothing. But I was in a full blown panic. I hadn't had a full blown panic attack in quite some time. And I went through high anxiety, low function from Wednesday until the race morning. I really had
Wow.
trouble eating. I had trouble, like, I was just literally step by step, like fighting through the fear, fighting through everything to get to that starting line. And by God's amazing grace, I got to that starting line and I ran 26.2 miles. I did walk a couple times and a little jogging in there. I'm just going to own it. But
That's fine. That counts.
I went 26.2 miles with complete joy. I felt good in my mind. I felt good in my body. I felt well in my soul. And it was a reminder to me that not every thought is true, and to stay close to God, to remain prayerful, to invite God in and ask for what we need for clarity, for wisdom, for whatever it is, strength, courage. But like you said, what the other side of it is, I did it, and there was actually joy. But for 3 days there was no joy. So I tell my kids specifically often, I said, sometimes it's short-term freedom, excuse me, short-term suffering for long-term freedom. But what culture often teaches us is short-term freedom, but that can lead to long-term suffering. And the
Yes.
other side of that is happiness versus joy. Happiness is a puddle we jump in that quickly withers up, but joy is like the ocean we can swim in. And trying to find that joy within us so that even in circumstances such as cancer, I still had joy. Running a marathon to say I had joy, like, come on, that's weird. Like, I'll own that. But I did. Why? Because there's a gift, there's a fruit that can grow in us when we can kind of surrender all of that and let God or love lead us.
Right. Well, we are just about at the end of our time. So before we go, first of all, tell our listeners where they can find your podcast.
So it's pause, breathe, pray on wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify. Also, you can visit ShaunElizabethGeorge.com, my website. Again, there's a resource page on there. There's a cancer link, or a page for cancer that has some free resources for anyone who is going through cancer, who has a loved one going through cancer that you can download. Um, there's a free reading of A Place for Sam also on the kids page. So if anyone wants to sit down with their kid or grandkid, Chip, and read A Place for Sam, you're welcome to do that. And you can find me on social media. I primarily use Instagram and Facebook, and you can find me at Shaun Elizabeth George on those.
Fantastic. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway from today?
Well, it has been pure joy to have you on our podcast today. And all I can think about, we're not visible, but I'm wearing a t-shirt today that says Grateful Grandpa. And gratitude is the word that comes to mind, period, for everything in life. I mean, whether you are religious or not, the source of all creation is unconditional love, plain and simple. And whether you're a religious and listen to Jesus who said, love God and love your neighbor as yourself, there's also the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And when that happens, the circle of life, giving and receiving, comes around and it makes life better one present moment at a time. And so take away the pause, breathe, pray. And it is all about love because that's where we're meant to be. We're spiritual beings on a human ride right now. And the more that we can enjoy the ride by just giving it out, look outside, take a nature walk, and so on and so forth, just appreciate all of creation. Obviously, each one of us is a big part of it. So thank you so much for being here, and God bless, and keep on keeping on, and good luck in Berlin.
Thank you so much, Chip. I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
thank you, Eric, so much.
It was great having you here. Yeah, I think for me the big takeaway is actually it's funny because we talked about it but never actually said the word perseverance. That's basically everything you've done. You found a way to persevere. And it doesn't matter if it's a mental health problem, a physical health problem, a day-to-day challenge. We all have things we need to get through. And once you understand that, yes, you have the capability to persevere, the rest becomes easier. And you can see what's on the other side, because what's on the other side is always better than the suffering you're going through. So I think that's something our listeners need to keep in mind.
And just, I'm sorry, just because like everything you're saying, like I said, my business is called Live from the Inside. My ministries live from the inside out. But as you said, it's already within you. Like clear out the clutter, come within and find it. It's there.
Absolutely. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.